What's up, everybody? This week, Sarah and I talk about the album that was the catalyst of the Britpop scene.
Parklife.
That and a whole lot more is to come, because maybe all the people, so many people, do like Marmite. Welcome to the show. Alright, everybody. Bad pun aside. Welcome back to the 90s podcast, right here on the Because Maybe Network. Hope you are doing fantastically fantastic, and yeah, it is good to be back. Welcome to season 7, and as you can tell, I am not alone. I am joined by Chief Whipcracker Extraordinaire, Sarah. Sarah, how you doing?
I am fabulous, and I'm excited to be back. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just remember to say hello to all the people.
So many people.
Yes, we are here to talk about the great album
Parklife
by Blur. But before we get going, guys and gals and everybody in between, if you like what you hear, go to our social media pages. Go to Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. You'll find us at Because Maybe Network. Go to our YouTube channel, bit.ly/bmnetwork-youtube. And of course, if you were not hearing this on your favorite podcast place to go, if you just kind of wandered over it, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and TuneIn.
Woo!
So, Sarah, it is good to have you back. Have you been studying during our off time?
You know it.
Because this is going to be a pop quiz. Okay, so we are here to talk. Now, we got a slight format change, as you can probably tell. We're not going to go with the introduction BS, because last time we tried it, we missed Tiger King. So, and the Australian wildfires, and this pesky little coronavirus thing that's going around.
2020 is not the year to do pre-recorded with news canned, because you're going to end up, everything's changing so fast. It's ridiculous.
Everything is changing so fast. But one of the things that didn't change so fast was British music in the 90s, and that's why we're here. We're going to be talking about what many people consider to be the catalyst to the Britpop movement. I mean, there were other albums out at the time, but they think this is the catalyst. This is 1994's Parklife by Blur. Okay, so let's get the information out the way for all the stats and people numbers, okay? This album came out on the 25th of April, 1994. It did not chart on the Billboard charts.
Correct.
Which is surprising to me, because the other two albums that preceded this did. Not very high,
right?
But they did. This was number one album on the UK chart, obviously. Right. And it sold in excess of 2.5 million copies worldwide.
Fabulous.
It was produced by Stephen Street and Stephen Hague, and of course the band Blue itself. And for all you label people, this was produced on Fued Records or EMI, depending on which way you wanted to look at it.
Right.
Okay, so let me tell you a story, okay? And let's
gather round, children. Let's
gather round. Listen to Grandpa Simpson, because remember, one time I went to get a new heel for my shoe, so I tied an onion to my belt. It was the style at the time. So, anyway, no, I'm not going to go into all that. Which, by the way, annoys the kids so much. Okay, so let's go back in time. Let's take our wonderful, wonderful time machine 30 years ago.
I hate you.
Yeah, I know, I hate me too. To
the halcyon days.
Halcyon days of 1990. We just had a new decade. Hair metal was going away. Nirvana weren't big yet. And the Stone Roses had just basically blown away the British music scene, okay?
Okay.
A lot of British labels were looking for kind of similar bands to that. Okay, so there's this little southern Cockney band called Seymour, who changed their name to Blur.
Right.
And released a double A-side single called I Know / She's So High. And it didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
Because it didn't. But then, in early 91, they released a song called There's No Other Way. And the music press absolutely lost their shit.
Really?
Yeah. It got number 6 in the charts. The hook of the song was the drum beat and the bass line. And the style in which they did was unusual for, like, a pop song back in that day.
Okay.
And British music press falling all over them, thought they were going to be the next big thing. Stone Roses is going to be a little while and release a new album, so there's this Blue band coming along. Hey, they sound really, really good. It was funky as opposed to traditional 4-bar rock, and the rest of their debut album Leisure had similar stuff, nothing really as good, especially when you consider that I Know wasn't an album track. It was never released on any albums, which would have been in a similar vein. But the problem is that Blur have always been, or were always, up until 1995, a cheeky, chappy, jingly British pop band, you know? And when I say British pop band, I don't just mean like from Britain. I mean, I say British, they were decisively English.
Right.
And Southern English at that.
Oh, yeah.
So they weren't working class, they were the soft Southern shandy drinkers.
Yes.
Now, I want to clarify something before we carry on here. I got a message on our YouTube page a couple of months ago when we were talking about the dichotomy in the UK between North and South, and how in America
it's reversed.
It's reversed. And somebody was
That's how I have to explain it to people here.
And somebody was like, well, in Chicago and New York and Pennsylvania, they have hard-working, working-class people. I understand that. And they have hard-working class people in Colchester. It's just when you think of salt of the earth... Rust Belt. Yeah, it's the South in America and it's the North in the United Kingdom. Right.
There's hard-working people in all 50 states.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's when you think of lower class working Americans, you think of somewhere with an accent going yeehaw yeehaw, you know, which is not.
I'm gonna cut you.
Well, it's not correct, but that's what most people outside of the United States think.
I gotcha.
And when they think of hard-working British dudes, they think of the dudes in the flat caps and the cotton shirts and stuff like that. Okay. So
can we have another?
Yeah, I had to get that off my chest.
Okay.
But the problem is going back to the cheeky chappy English Southern, Cockney style of pop music. Grunge hit the UK in the very, very early 90s.
Right.
So the kids have got a choice to listen to songs about Sunday dinner and war memorials and British commercials, or songs that kind of speak to them, coming from bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, bands like R.E.M.,
Well, yeah, they're going to pick the other.
Yeah, so unfortunately for Blue, Modern Life is Rubbish was not really a huge success. I mean, critically, the critics thought it was good.
Right.
But, it was just, again, it was too English. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, as well, is their next big thing tag also went away. Because after a top 6 single with There's No Other Way, everything between that and Girls and Boys, which was basically their second single to their 10th single, didn't chart in the top 25.
Right.
Now, over here, correct me if I'm wrong, the Billboard Top 200, if anything shows up on that list, it's considered a hit, right?
Correct.
And it's because there's so much music. In the United States, such a big country, so much is released at a certain time. In Britain, it's top 40.
Okay.
But if something doesn't chart in the top 20...
It's not really...
It's not, it's just there.
Right.
And having a bunch of stuff chart under 25... Blur...
I mean, you're a working band, but you're not a hit band.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they started becoming the afterthought in the music press. They went from the next big thing to, oh yeah, Blur. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, I remember those guys. Yeah.
So, they were upset. They were traveling promoting this album that their record label didn't like, that the music press didn't like, in a country they weren't particularly fond of. Not in the I hate America and its lifestyle kind of way, but I hate America because it's not England, They were homesick. They were drastically homesick. And Damon Alburn was listening to the BBC World Service. And at that time, it was very, very businessy and British and, it was a pre-worldwide global world at that point, right?
I follow.
Okay. So, Damon, depressed, homesick, and hating all this grunge nonsense that he thought, ironically did something punk. And that was continue to write the traditional British pop songs that he liked. The 4 chords, the characters, and... he wanted to write what he called classic British pop music. So, they start writing this up. Now, the band are about to go up financially because they've spent all their advance and the label doesn't want to... The label can't afford to keep paying them. Not because they're expensive, but they see them as a waste of money and a waste of resources. The band is about to go down. And with their last amount of cash, they recruit Stephen Street to produce an album. And around about this time, this is like early 93, mid 93, the tides are changing in British music, and suddenly British bands are starting to be...
Cool Britannia.
Not quite.
Almost.
Not quite. More along the lines of not quite unhip Britannia. because the shoegaze.
All right, Britannia.
Yeah, decent Britannia. It went from like the grunge scene was still there, but at the same time, like the shoegazing scene, the Manchester scene, all that stuff kind of not faded away, but you know,
there was a lull.
There was a lull, and then all of a sudden, Elastica, Pulp, Suede started releasing stuff, and the public were like, "Oh, this British pop music stuff, this pop rock stuff, this could be interesting.
There might be something to that."
Yeah. And I mean, they all got really, really good fanfare.
Right.
Unfortunately for these three bands, the biggest buzz was on this brand new signed band from Manchester who hadn't played a gig in London yet and were the hottest independent band around at the time.
My boys.
The four guys called Oasis? I wonder what happened to them. So what happened is they got in the studio and recorded this album.
Right.
That became Parklife.
Right.
And the record label, excuse my language, the record label is chicken.
Bagok.
They said, oh my God, we're ruined. Because this album is so English and so Southern English and it goes against everything that we've got going on and we need to sound more American.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. And at that point, Fued Records was more or less sold to EMI at that point. Because they couldn't keep running. Now, unfortunately... fortunately for British music, but unfortunately for worldwide music, this is around about the time that Kurt Cobain died.
Right.
And with all due respect to Nirvana, and I love Nirvana. I do. I love Nirvana. Their music was not exactly the happy-go-lucky, you know...
It wasn't meant to be.
No, exactly. And then after the lead songwriter is dead due to an alleged suicide, wink...
here we go.
Now, because the lead singer is dead, he committed suicide. The British music press and the British music fans in general needed something a little more upbeat and jolly and jaunty. And so the vacuum was there. The bands that I mentioned previously had either released their latest releases or weren't ready to release anything yet. And Blur came in and bang. There we are. Blur are now suddenly...
Bada bing, bada boom.
Blur are now suddenly the most hottest band in Britain. So nobody expected anything of this album. The band thought it would fail commercially, but they thought it was a damn good album. Nobody predicted that it would go on and sell 2.5 million records. In context, Parklife is Blur's second biggest selling album of the original run.
Okay.
And the biggest album was The Great Escape, which was a couple of years later at the height of Britpop.
Right.
But their first two albums didn't sell over 600,000 copies combined.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a big jump.
So that's a huge jump. So, what is the album? The album is 16 tracks of very good to poor music. Agree or disagree?
I agree.
And it's nothing against any of the guys. They worked hard on this album. This was a hard worked album. But basically this was written and recorded by Damon Alburn, Graham Coxon, Alex James and Dave Rowntree, who we know as Blur.
Right.
Like most albums in the Britpop time, however, Damon did not sing every track that had a singer on it.
Right.
And interestingly enough, the guy who usually did the second string singing wasn't the guy who did the second string singing this time. It was actually bassist Alex James. Alex James is... You've seen David Williams.
Right.
They look and act like they could be brothers.
Right.
And I'll get to why... But let me tell you a little something about the band first, right? For those of you who don't know. I mean, Blur... You guys know Blur over here for song 2, right?
Or the Gorillaz, or you know Damon from the Gorillaz.
You know Damon from the Gorillaz, but that's not necessarily Blur.
Oh no, it's not Blur, but it's a lead-in for most.
True, that's like saying if you don't know, you know the Foo Fighters because of Nirvana. I mean,
well, not really.
No, exactly.
Because you would have heard of Nirvana first. A lot of people didn't hear of Blur.
True. But Blur. Okay, Blur came from the same kind of setup as most bands in Britain in the 90s did. Okay. They all came from this kind of working class, poor area of town, of the world. Unfortunately, the difference between Essex poor and Barnsley poor is quite drastic. you know?
Yeah, it's different definitions of poor.
Different definitions of poor. To the eyes of many from the North, Blur were working class guys.
Right.
Not working class guys, middle class guys.
Right.
And Blur fought against this image for years and years and years because, hey, we grew up in schools with no money too. We grew up in towns that were decimated by Thatcher too, but the decimation up north was a hell of a lot.
Way more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it just was. And the reason I bring that up is you only got to look at the band, right? In their later years, Noel Gallagher, Liam Gallagher, Jarvis Cocker, they made music still, right? In their free time, they did a lot of football and sporty stuff, yeah?
Right.
Alex James made cheese. I pulled up the Wikipedia page just to get some information. Alex James is a musician and cheesemaker.
Cheese.
Not even like, you know, sliced cheese. We're talking like gourmet.
Like brie.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, Dave Rowntree became an animator. Now, he did that in part to, you know, to go over his alcoholism and stuff like that.
Right.
But, like, they're not what you would expect of working class folks. I don't know anybody in an industrial town that grew up who's a cheesemaker now.
I'm sure there's somebody. Somebody in Manchester makes cheese.
No. Okay, but I grew up in an industrial town. What I'm saying is
somebody in Port Talbot makes cheese.
Well, you got to understand. My hometown, there's a man who dresses up.
Not Port Talbot. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a dude in my town who dresses up like a superhero and baked beans and thinks he's a superhero. God bless Barry. But I mean, you know, that's
somebody
I guess the
makes
closest.
Cheese.
Somebody makes cheese. Okay, so let's get into the album. Let's go
I could see your sister making cheese.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
So let's go track by track. Okay, with the album, like we do with these things. And before we get started, let me give you a couple of disclaimers. Damon Alburn wrote all the lyrics except for a song called Far Out.
Okay.
The band, Damon Albarn wrote the frame of the music. The band kind of filled it out and tweaked it if necessary.
Got it.
Okay. Also, all the songs that were written by Damon Albarn, with the exception of the 2 instrumentals, or 1.5 instrumentals, depending on how you look at it, they're small stories. And they either revolve around the story or the character. And that's how we wrote up until the end of The Great Escape, okay? So let's start off with the lead song of the album, Girls and Boys.
Yeah, this is, most people, unless you lived in a major metropolitan area, you know, unless you lived in New York, and you guys have heard me talk about this before. Unless you lived in a major metropolitan area, this is the Blur song you knew before song 2.
Yeah.
This is it.
It's a really, really good song.
I like it.
I mean, I mean.
And before we go any further, I need to preface something. I need to preface this whole track listing.
Okay.
So, guys, other than a few singles, I was not familiar with the rest of this album until I was long an adult. And the reason being because of the big Blur v Oasis thing. And I was a diehard Oasis fan. And thou shalt not listen to Blur.
Well,
so unless it was on the radio or in a movie, I didn't know it.
Well, the problem was with this, before we go back into Girls and Boys, is that you can't talk about 1994 to 1997. You can't talk about one without the other. They're so intertwined.
Okay. You can't. Over here, it was completely different. So, I mean, I could see where you couldn't because that's what was there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so, you know, mismatched. And
you've noticed I've mentioned Oasis 3 times already.
Right.
You know.
But over here, you could very easily make that distinction and you were a Blur...
yeah.
You were, and you were a Blur person and you were an Oasis person.
And a lot...
Say Beatles versus the Stones.
Yeah, and I mean, in the press, in the press, you couldn't talk about one without the other, but there were very, very...
Right.
There were battle lines drawn. In fact, in the Oasis book, Getting High by Pablo Hewitt, I recommend any Oasis fan to get it. They talked about like concerts that either band had to move in certain cities because there were fights going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was like hooliganism all over again, you know, and...
if you were online and back in those early days, and I mean, and... literally, now back then they couldn't really dox you because that was before, not the general public anyway. It's not like it is now. But like your reputation would be dragged through crap if they found out that you know,
one band or the other.
Yeah, if you stepped out on one band with the other. And
it was that. I mean, we live in a very, very binary society. Mm-hmm. It's either one thing or another. If you don't like one thing, then you automatically like the other thing. I mean, you know, I don't want to go political right now, right? I don't want to go too into the weeds on that one. But if you don't vote for one candidate, then you're automatically voting for the other candidate, and vice versa, which is you know, which is stupid. Anyway, so girls and boys, right? Back to the Blue. The bass line on this thing, if you were a fan of poppy, funky bass lines, this is the song for you.
Yes.
I will say this, right? I never liked the persona that Alex James put off in public.
Right.
Never did. He seemed like an asshole to me, right? He seemed like an arrogant piece of crap. He wasn't, but he seemed that way. But he is a f***ing good bass player.
Yeah, he is.
He's a damn good bass player, you know. And this bass line right here, if this is what you're presenting as the first, and this is the bass line you've got, you've hooked something, you know. This was the first top 5 single that the band had in the UK, and actually broke the Billboard 100, coming in at 61.
Yes.
So, you know, it was the start of the revival. Unfortunately for Damon, he had a panic attack when it was released. It was his first panic attack because he knew there's no other way it was a false start, but he knew the difference between the false start and the, oh crap, this is strap in, lads, we're going to the moon, you know? Mm-hmm. And yeah, so if you don't know, the story is basically about drinking, sex, and drugs on vacation in Greece.
Yes.
So, typical lad song, you know, which was unusual for them at the time, because they were seen as more cosmopolitan rather than blatant, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, now the other thing about Girls and Boys before we go ahead and move on to the next track is that, again, I'm not trying to compare. Noel Gallagher said about the infamous Battle of Britpop that happened a year later.
Yeah.
With Roll With It and Country House.
Yeah.
Noel said those 2 songs were shit. And if they really wanted to do it right, they should have done it with this song and Cigarettes and Alcohol.
Ooh, that would have been a good one.
Yeah. And considering they're both pretty much about the same subject.
Right.
You know. So, there goes the fun portion. Then we move to a song called Tracy Jacks.
Yeah, see, I was not familiar with this song until I was older.
This song right here, it was a really, really good song, I thought, right? The drums are pretty much standard, and, you know, again, Alex James knocks it out the park with his bass, right? And it's a story, and this is kind of going to be the theme of the album, right? It's a story that Damon Alburn told of a 40-year-old Tracy who was so bored with their life that they decided to fake their own death in a mental breakdown, and then once they got caught, destroyed their own house.
Isn't that good Norwegian wood? That's sort of, yeah.
Kind of, right?
Yeah.
Basically what it was is that they wanted to write something suggestive, right? And they wrote that Tracy was either transgender, why they tempted the faking of the death, because they just didn't want to lead the duplicitous life anymore. Mm-hmm. They were trying to lead. And that is kind of done with the lyrics, and in the book, the album book, there is a picture of a bearded dude fully dressed up.
Right. Which
I know that's not exactly what it is, but in the 90s, that was the was the image of it. One of the lyrics, it sounds really, really obscure, right? It says the first string to Walton. Basically, but Damon Albarn found this town called Walton-on-Sea. It's like a half-finished seaside town. You see them in British TV shows where it's got like the huts, and the beach, and then the White House, and then nothing else in town. He called those half-finished towns, and he was fascinated by these things. Like, what did these people do for day-to-day stuff?
Right.
You know? And so that's what he wanted to write about. And this was supposed to be the lead single on the album. Thank God it wasn't. But again, this is why Blue were considered middle class. They were talking about golf, the civil service, Harley Street, which is like the place where all the private doctors and plastic surgeons are in the UK. I think the equivalent of here is what, Mulholland Drive?
Yes.
Yeah. Not Beverly Hills.
Rodeo.
Yeah, Rodeo Drive. That's what I'm looking for. And, it it was the fact that these guys, they everybody thought they were middle class when they weren't, but they were talking about crap that the kids didn't like, or the kids didn't care about, I should say, you know?
Yeah.
So, the next song is called End of a Century.
Yes, I love this song.
I love this song too.
It's a good song.
It is a good song. It's weird to think about it now, right?
Right.
You forget how excited people were pre-2000 about the year 2000.
Yeah.
Before Y2K came and killed everybody's excitement for that, you know? Basically, it talks about the upcoming, you know, the upcoming end of the century, end of the millennium, whatever, and how people contemplate their future and not their present.
Gotcha.
And there's a line in here that says, the end of a century, oh, it's nothing special. And it was cynical, it was melancholy, but it was delivered in such an upbeat kind of...
Right, that's how Damon was.
Well, that's how he still is, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't got to listen to the Gorillaz these days, and, you know, it's still the same.
Right.
You know? And at the time, I mean, look, it was 6 years away at that point. We didn't have proper internet back then, and everybody was losing their because of it. You know?
And the first line talks of a home that Damon and Justine Frenchman had that
was like infested with ants.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's ants in the carpet, you know.
Yeah, if you're not Cockney, you pretty much have to listen to that song 2 or 3 times before you can distinguish all the lyrics for that song.
Yeah, I mean,
right, but it tells a story of a couple who are just now going through the motions. You know, it's about how couples get into staying in and staring at each other. Only instead of candlelight, it's the TV light.
That is a very, very depressing view on long-term relationships.
Yes, it is.
And especially considering Damon Albarn would write his breakup album with Justine Frischman not 3 years later.
Right.
You know, it's kind of pathetic.
Yeah, and it takes the energy of the album down a little bit.
Yeah, the first 2 songs are a little energetic.
Right.
And they're a little bouncier. This one kind of, you know, slows the pace down.
But the brass section helps with the gravitas of the song, though.
Yeah, it does have... Blur cheated with the brass section.
Yeah, how so?
Okay. All the other bands at the time, they had to hire a brass section. You don't have to hire a brass section when you have 2 guys who can play the trumpet, the trombone, and the saxophone. You know? So they cheated with that.
That's not cheating.
No, it's not, but it's, you know...
That's being better equipped.
Right? I mean, they released this as the 4th single.
Right.
And at that point, you know, they were already on high and you know, everything was good. And a lot of people were like, they shouldn't have released this. This should not have been the song.
Right.
There's a song called We'll Tell You Later that they wanted to release.
A song called We'll Tell You Later?
We'll Tell You Later.
Okay.
We'll get to it later. But,
right.
That's what they wanted to release instead of it. And I think, personally, they should have done that. And that would have kind of helped them in their image a hell of a lot more.
Yes.
You know? So, all right, let's talk about the title track and the 3rd single from the album.
Parklife.
It's a classic sarcastic view of Englishness as opposed to a celebration of it.
Parklife.
Okay, basically put Graham Cox on the guitar said, it wasn't about the working class, it was about the park class. The dustbin men, the pigeons, the joggers, the things you saw every day on the way to the studio.
Ah. It was originally sung by Damon Alburn in the studio, but it didn't feel right.
Yeah, I just can't imagine the words being sung.
No.
They must have rewritten it.
Yeah.
You know, because there's no way Damon could have sung the words. So what they did is they'd been negotiating with Cockney actor Phil Daniels to come do something on the album. Now, Phil Daniels might not be a name you know, but you'll probably know who he is if you're a fan of rock opera.
Okay.
He was a theater actor. Looking at him and the style of role he plays, it was hard to believe that when I found that out. But he basically played Jimmy in the movie adaptation of Quadrophenia by The Who.
And when the original plan fell through, he was offered the opportunity to be the narrator of Parklife.
Yep.
He accepted but refused to be paid, but took a royalty share. Smart man.
And they made money off this song.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this was the song.
Yeah.
In the UK.
Yeah.
Like, whenever you said Blur, you thought Parklife.
Right.
That was it. That was their song. I mean, for years. I mean, even I'd guess you say even now you mention Blue, and one of the first things people think of is Parklife.
Yes.
The way you can tell a band's signature song is whether or not it's memed or not.
Yes.
And we'll get to that here in just a second. This song right here was a flashpoint in the Oasis Blue rivalry.
Right.
Picture it. 1996.
Picture it, Sicily. Yeah. 1996.
Picture it, Earl's Court, 1996.
Yes.
Okay, so let me give the backstory for this. Oasis won Best New Act. Blue swept the rest.
Well, yeah, because they didn't qualify for Best New Act.
Yeah, but I mean,
right.
But Oasis qualified for Best Album, Best Band, and Best Video.
Yeah.
And that all went to Blue. Right? And Blue, on accepting the Best Band award, said, we want to share this with Oasis.
Uh-huh.
And that the guys from Manchester.
Well, yeah, it did. Because that's a pity award right there. Yeah. We don't do pity awards.
We don't do pity awards. I'd have taken it.
We don't need your award.
So next year, the guys are up again in the three categories again.
Yeah.
And this time Oasis sweep it with Wonderwall, Morning Glory, and themselves. So after winning the award, now Oasis are hammered at this point, right? And when I say hammered, I mean for the Brit Awards, they were hammered.
Yes.
And the Brit Awards are basically a party with an award ceremony tacked into it, right? It's kind of like when you go to a PTA meeting that turns into a school play, you know. It's a party and they'll give you a statue every couple of hours, right? So when they went up there for the Wonderwall thing, they started singing Parklife in a very, very drunken folk cockney.
Yeah, stupor.
Oh, the people.
Shite life.
Yeah, and then so Liam Gallagher called it Shite Life, Noel Gallagher called it Marmite, and the camera cut to Damon Alburn. And he sat there looking humiliated, you know? And I mean, you got to understand, the Blue Oasis rivalry was not just a musical rivalry, it was a personal rivalry.
Right.
Some of the comments that the bands made about each other, especially Noel to Damon.
Yeah, which is hilarious now because their daughters are besties.
And they are almost besties at this point.
Yeah.
You know, but it's...
no. Noel and Damon, not Liam.
No, but you get what I'm saying. It was like...
Liam doesn't let die.
They threw some horrible insults at each other. Like Noel said he wished that the bass player and Damon and Alex got AIDS and they would fucking die. And now he
he's backtracked on that a million times.
He backtracked on it after he said it.
Yeah,
you know it's the cocaine talking. He said which I partly agree with. I mean maybe he didn't want to use the choice of words correctly, but
he wanted to insult them.
He wanted to insult them and point out how much he fucking hated them.
Right.
You know? And so, you know, Damon's sitting there humiliated. They've already been sped out at that point by the music press too, so it wasn't a good night for them. But what did happen was that this song became... Like, this song made Blue rich.
A little bit, yeah.
Right? The music video... Damon Albarn, Phil Daniels, they play a pair of shady double glazing window salesmen while the rest of the band come around, you know, playing other characters in the town.
Right.
And then the football fans picked it up. So, 1997. There's a place called Hackney Marshes, right? British listeners, you know what Hackney Marshes are. Let me just explain it. It is a giant field and has 80, as of time of recording, full-size football soccer pitches.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right? It is known as the Church of Sunday League.
Gotcha.
Like every week, every Sunday, 160 teams play.
Right. You should pick a field.
Yeah. So what Nike did is they got the four biggest sponsored players in the UK at the time. Eric Cantona, Ian Wright, Robbie Fowler, and David Seaman. And they kind of put them in these Sunday League teams. So, you know, you were seeing Big Dave with a hangover passing it to two of the hardest players in England at that time.
Right.
You know, it was funny. And especially the song got traction from the London clubs, especially Chelsea.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Who Phil Daniels and Damon Albarn support. Interestingly enough, Norwich City got it. They have a manager called Daniel Farker. So they called the song
Parklife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, it has actually become a meme. So whenever you hear somebody say, like, do a complete run-on sentence...
Right.
somebody will splice it in a video. Somebody will splice it together with Parklife.
Yeah.
One of the funniest was football player Charlie Aston, who just went on a complete rant.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that one. That one's cute. That one's very cute.
But so does this song deserve to be the classic that it is?
Yes,
Of course.
absolutely.
Hey, we said it at the same time.
But bomb.
Yeah, but
Now I'm not a fan of this next song.
no, I don't think so either. And this kind of
The only bank holiday I like is Boneheads, and we'll talk about that.
we'll talk about that in a couple of days.
Episodes,
Good Lord. It is very, very short. It is
Yes.
very, very.
Thank God.
It sounds like they overdosed on caffeine and got in the studio and just started
Yes.
playing. But it kind of does have a message to it. It talks about what English people do over a 3-day weekend. They basically cook, drink, screw, and then panic that they've got to go back to work Tuesday.
Honey, that's not a British thing. That's not an exclusive British thing.
No, I understand that,
but you guys do have more 3-day weekends than we do, which is I'm jelly.
The Queen has 2 for her birthday.
Yeah,
She has 2 birthdays.
her Jubilee and then
No. Her official birthday and her actual birthday.
Oh,
Don't ask me why they're different. Just an excuse to
really?
Just an excuse to make more stamps and money, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
But the problem is it just really seems out of place.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It's there, you know.
Yeah.
It just like, okay, we need track 5. Here's track 5, you know. They did release a similar song called "We've Got a File on You" and a few albums later, but I mean, I don't know. I don't like this style of filler song. It's only like a minute long or a minute and a half.
Yeah,
long,
I'm not a big fan.
You know, so we're gonna skip that one over. But let's talk about a song called "Bad Head."
Okay.
Okay. Again, they cheated with the brass.
Yeah, but it is a great sounding brass intro.
It is.
And you only really have to learn half the song.
Yeah.
If you're going to sing along with it.
Yeah, because they just change the URI.
Yeah, they just change the pronouns.
And there's nothing I could find when I was doing the research that said anything about what the song was about.
Officially.
Right. There are actually 3 things. The 3 biggest theories. All right.
And we love a theory.
We love a good fan theory.
Yes, we do.
Which means that it's probably 1, both, all, or none.
Or all 3, right?
Yeah.
Here, you take the first one.
Okay, it's about dealing with depression.
Uh-huh.
I get up around 2 in the afternoon.
Right.
You know, talking about late starts in the day. Talking about just getting your head down and getting on with it even though you don't want to.
Okay.
Which is classic depression.
Right.
You know.
Or it could be about dealing with the toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Some of the lyrics, again, talk about getting on with it.
Yep.
Because it's not worth the trouble of an argument.
Yep. Might as well just grin and bear it because it's not worth trouble of an argument.
Right.
You know, and the other one is like, you know, you've seen an old friend for the first time in years. You know, so far we've not stayed in touch.
Oh, that's when you make that classic white person face.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just like, oh, hey, it's Steve, right? You know?
Yeah, that smile, that
But
y'all know what I'm talking about.
But apparently, the most unofficial thing came from an obscure interview that Damon Alburn did in a Japanese music magazine.
Of course.
Well, all bands toured Japan.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, of course, it's in an obscure Japanese music magazine.
Damon Alburn apparently said that it's about a hangover.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
And about being teased by his girlfriend about it.
Of course.
So, you know, just I'll shut up and deal with it, blah, 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 blah. You know? So, hey, you know. Next song. It's called Debt Collector.
I could not listen to this without Weird Al vibes.
No, it definitely had a very German sound.
Yeah, it's the polka.
It's got accordions, tubas, no guitars and keyboard.
Right.
You know, and it was very, very blur.
Yes.
Very blur. Basically, this was supposed to have a poem right over it. So it'd just be an instrumental track with Mr. Parklife himself, Phil Daniels, reading something over it. That's how they originally got together.
Yeah.
So they couldn't find a suitable poem, and he didn't want to write one because songwriting is just poetry with music. You know.
Right. Yeah. That's cheating.
Yeah. I guess. But it didn't go nowhere. It lasted longer than it should have. They did get it right on the next album.
Yes.
With a song called Ernal Same with the Right Honourable left-wing loony Ken Livingstone, as he was known. And that was actually a very, very good track. I like that. But,
right.
you have to understand the context. Next song.
This song, this next one, I can't. I'm going to let John do most talking on this one because the song itself gives me a headache.
It gives her a very, very bad migraine.
Just thinking about it, my brain is twitchy.
Well, I will take all of it. Now, this is the only blues song that was written by bassist Alex James to actually make an album. He'd had some B-sides recorded, but nothing on an album. He is a very, 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 nerd over astrology. Big astrology dude.
Which is cool in and of itself.
Yeah, I'm using nerd, not prerogative at that one. Right?
Gotcha.
I mean, the first Mars probe that was released a few years ago had a blues song on the probe as kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? The handshake of "Hey, we made it" kind of thing.
Right.
So I mean, it's very, very. It's what he is, part of what he is, aside from making cheese, right? It's very, very psychedelic, and it's very, very Syd Barrett.
And see, I like psychedelic. Sid, but when you go from Jerry Garcia to Syd Barrett, years ago I could have taken the proper drugs to appreciate this song for what it was, but I've had some children since then, and my brain just I can't roll with it anymore, guys. I got old.
Ironically, your brain is too squiggy to deal with it.
Yeah, I can't. 18-year-old me would have been all on this.
I'll be completely honest, right? I know nothing about astrology. I know things like the Northern Star.
I know a bit.
I wondered for the longest time why the hell he was singing about Beetlejuice. I'm thinking, why the hell is he singing about Michael Keaton in this? You're mocking me, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. But it's actually talking about, obviously, the big star and the constellation and stuff like that. But again, it's so weird. It is like a weird... It's a weird detour.
Oh, God. I'm crying, y'all.
And the funny thing is, you have the same sheet of paper that I have, and you would have read that, too, if you...
Well, I was giving the album another listen to, and then I noticed the last tab talked about how it gives me a headache. Yeah. And I was so stuck on the fact that I have a headache while I'm listening to this that I sort of skipped over that bullet point, and I'm sorry because I would have ribbed you harder.
Yes. Well, that the only thing good about that song is is Damon's keyboards. It's very, very up and down spacey, Yes. I could picture it being on 1980s Doctor Who.
I feel that.
So, next song is called To the End.
I like this one.
I love this song. It's one of my favorite blues songs. It's very, very classy.
Yes.
It's like, putting the box wine in the fridge. But you know what I mean by that, right?
I got you.
It's what us plebs think is the epitome of class, right? It's got a very, very good full orchestra, horn section. You can hear the traditional, you can hear the guys playing too, obviously. Right. But I mean, it was a very, very not elegant, but what's the word I'm looking for? Grand arrangement.
It has a certain je ne sais quoi, which is, considering that it's got the lyrics in both English and French.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sung by Laetitia Sadier. Am I saying that correctly?
I think so, yeah.
Sadier?
Of Stereolab.
Of Stereolab, yes. Yep. It was also re-recorded in French and as a duet with French singer Francois Hardy.
Yeah.
I'm probably saying that wrong.
I don't know. I'm not even going to try because my sound of non-English words.
3 years of French, but you can't tell. Well, 4 years if you can't. Me helping our teenager.
There you go. They did a similar. They did a similar arrangement to the song "The Universal."
Right.
But this one is kind of like, for all its grandioso and and everything about it, it's about the moment of breakup.
Yeah.
Like when both, not like a.
It's like we tried.
Yeah, it's at the moment where both people knew that.
Yeah.
It's a breakup.
Yeah.
It's time, we're over, and it's actually, one of those songs that is used at weddings and proms as the slow dance.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's sort of like Green Day's Good Riddance, Time of Your Life.
Yeah, One by Blur.
Yeah, One by Blur. One by U2.
One by U2 even.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like, do people listen to the lyrics before?
No, they just think it sounds happy.
I mean, you got to understand, our song, the song we both love, is also a breakup song.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I guess that's... It's people trying to say this is not going to happen to us. It's punk.
Well, there you go.
Because punk isn't all, down with the police. It's doing something against societal norms.
Mm-hmm.
And making your love song a song about breaking up.
There you go.
Very punk.
The next one is one of my favorites, London Loves.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Because you are the person that they wrote the song about.
I know, right? I'm an Anglophile.
Yep.
Lyrically, it's a critique of the type of young person living in London.
Yep.
Talks about how people love London for its status, materialism, and lifestyle. In turn, it talks about how the city seems to love these people for keeping this style going.
So it's basically about...
Cool Britannia. It's about cool. I mean, it's about what fostered that.
Yeah, it's about people who basically... They're not Londoners. They have this picture of London in their head.
Oh, yeah.
And they love it. And the people in London... And there are people in London who love the idea of people loving London like this.
Yes.
So it's... It's very critical. It does have a lot of samples from BBC 94.9's Traffic Report. Again, true working class,
Right. I mean, the guitar in the song is fantastic, along with the bass line.
Yeah, definitely good work from Graham and Alec on this one.
Right. And fans believe that this song should have been a single.
Yeah, this is a Stone Cold favorite from the era by a lot of fans.
Yeah, and it's also a favorite among Blur fans.
Yeah, Stone Cold. I mean, it should have been... This is the thing. We'll talk about this later on, but like... All these songs are standalone, but there is like a loose theme threaded between them.
Right.
And it is Englishness. And the reason I'm saying Englishness, not Britishness, is because when people think of Englishness as was Britishness, it is that Southern England style. That London area, the novelty Union Jack hats and the, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, this is called Trouble in the Message Centre. And I don't like this song.
Yeah.
It's 80s, which is not...
I don't have a problem with 80s. I just... It didn't...
It's a throwback.
As the kids would say today, it doesn't slap.
It doesn't slap. No, it's a throwback, and the problem is they're trying to make a more modern sound at the time, but it was a throwback to a sound that many people didn't like. It wasn't like 80s as in cool 80s. It was in that,
right.
New wave crap. Yeah, and just it was heavy. It was a heavier song than most of the other stuff, and it's got a weird story about lyrics that were written on the back of a receipt from a hotel. So like a giant receipt that the hotel gives you with your itemized bill, Damon scrawled out the lyrics on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a story of people who spend too much time partying and taking drugs.
Yep.
Especially the rave culture that was formed in the UK at the time. Yeah. Which is an offshoot of things that were happening in Manchester, Liverpool, and Scotland.
Yeah, I mean, if you've read the book Trainspotting,
right?
Right. And I know this is going to sound obscure, but you've read interviews with the guys who did Red Dwarf, or, right? The Stone Roses era and stuff like that. There was a very, very big pill scene, for lack of a better term. And again, it's ironic, because Damon Alburn, Dave Rowntree, the drummer, and Graham Coxon have all publicly admitted to having tremendous addiction habits.
Yeah.
Damon Alburn was like, try one, get the whole set.
Right.
Graham Coxon was a notorious alcoholic, and Dave Rowntree was a notorious alcoholic who turned to cocaine.
Right.
So I mean, and now they're all doing well. Don't get me wrong. This is not a knock. It's just, it was their way of saying, hey, there's something not right in my brain.
Right.
That trouble in the message center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the bass and guitar are fantastic on this one.
They are. Again, Alex James is the MVP of this album. I never give him enough credit until... You gotta understand, right? When I do this research, right, for any of the music, it's albums that I've listened to, albums that I know. But it's only when I'm specifically listening to do this stuff that I realize how good or bad something was.
Right.
And Alex James's bass playing in this album is off the chart for a pop band. And that's not trying to knock, you know.
Oh, no.
You know, because like most bass players do well in funk bands.
Right.
Not in modern pop music.
Right.
You know? And he was the MVP of this album. Absolutely the MVP of this album, you know. But the problem is that the only good thing about this song, right, is that the production was the producers didn't produce this as tight as the rest of the album.
Right.
So it kind of added to the sound.
Yes.
And added to the style of what was needed, which is, you know, which is what it did need. It needed something because it was missing something. So.
Yes.
All right. This song is called Clover Over Dover. Say that 5 times fast with a mouthful of peanut
Clover over
butter.
Dover, Clover over
See, there you go.
Dover.
All right. And it's basically talking about suicide. It's a song about suicide, about a guy who loves this woman so much that he will do anything, including jumping off the White Cliffs of Dover.
Yes, and it's not often that you have a suicide song with a harpsichord.
No.
So, props.
Now, the White Cliffs of Dover is like, you ever see, you know, you see pictures of England that show up on the thing and you got these magnificent white cliffs.
Right.
You know, that's what it is, the White Cliffs of Dover. Mm-hmm. Very, very iconic British landmark. Vera Lynn wrote a song called There'll Be Bluebirds Over the White Cliffs of Dover.
Right.
During the war.
Right.
And that's one of the inspirations they took off there. But they also took a very seedy
of course.
song. Right? Now I say seedy. There's a modern English folk song. Saucy. Called Roll Me Over in the Clover. Right?
Uh-huh.
And it's basically one of those... It's formatted in the way of like one of those old school songs where you count from 1 to...
Right.
Whatever, right? And each verse is talking
about a different way that they plot out.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is in the 40s it was very, very scandalous. Now it's like a favorite at the Renaissance fairs and stuff like that, where you get the big buxom wench singing it, you know, and they go into the crowd and they start, you know, fondling the guys up there because sexual assault is fun.
Jesus.
Like, for example,
this is number 8. He bit me over the garden gate.
Yeah, I mean, and then happily cheerily, you know.
Yeah.
And lyrically, this has got to be one of the darkest songs on the album.
Yeah, but it sounds so pretty.
Musically, it's fantastic.
Yes.
It's you know, it's brilliant. It is a brilliant song. And again, it nailed it. Again, nailed the Englishness.
It's very English. Very, very English.
Very English.
Which is a stark contrast to the next song.
Yep.
Because the next song is not supposed to be English.
Nope.
It's supposed to be all Americana.
Yep. It's his
Magic America.
Magic America.
You know, written as a social statement at the overlapping of the UK and the United States culture.
I don't think that has stopped. And you know what tells me it hasn't stopped? The fact that an American and a British guy are in America talking about a British album. The cultures
Are we a statistic?
Don't you know it?
Well, it tells the story of a man who tries to engage in Americana in spite of being a proud Englishman and mocks people for wanting to live in a magic place, magic kingdom, magic mountain, magic, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. Also implying that this magical place does not exist.
Yep.
It really does not.
No.
Many people across the world were not as jaded by the U.S. at that point. We hadn't everybody off. Now, then there was a couple people who still kind of liked us a little bit.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's not just politically, it was culturally too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, for example, right, they now have proms in the UK.
Yes.
People like my sister's age are like, why the f*** are we having proms? What the hell's going on here? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Comprehensive school is now starting to be called high school.
Right.
You know, and
right.
it's complete overlapping of, you know.
Yeah, because now y'all have to go to school till 18.
Yeah. Didn't have to used to do that, thank God.
But the song replaces all the UK slang and Americanizes them. Slightly jarring when you listen to it, but in a good way.
Yeah.
See, yeah, for me, it was just a song.
Well, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but no, what I mean is, and I guess I should have, like, you know, I didn't have to actually use my Damon to American dictionary
because you already were embraced in the overlap of the cultures.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but I mean, if you listening to British Cockney jelly deals, you know,
apples and pears.
And then all of a sudden, like American English hits you. It's like a slap in the face with a paddle.
That's a paddle.
They've taken away your cricket bat and hit you with a baseball bat.
But it was done in an English sounding way.
Yeah, that was the best part about it.
Right.
The irony of everything.
Oh, yeah. Musically, it's unique for the album with lots of sound effects.
Definitely.
Use the phrase "all the people" 9 times in a drone at the end of the song.
Yeah. So Parklife wasn't the only song that was all the people. Yeah.
The guitars and bass are again fantastic, along with an undertone of a Hammond organ.
Yeah, Hammond. Now you want to
love a Hammond.
You want to get English?
Hammond organ.
Yeah, definitely. It's. I don't like this song. I really don't. I think it's
Magic America.
Yeah, I think it's
it's okay.
I think it's because of the departure of it.
Yeah,
and you got to remember, I'm probably the guy who's
sort of ambiguous.
I'm probably the guy they're talking about because I'd left home when I was 20 years old.
Right.
I came to Magic America.
You didn't leave England?
No, I left. Well, I'd left England a few months before that, but that's a different story for a different day. But a lot of the thing is this, right? We talk about the crossing over of American and British culture.
Right.
British culture is basically English culture overlapping into Welsh, Scottish, and Irish culture. And to me, as a guy who lived in England,
right,
and lived in Wales, and in Wales, especially Welsh to an Irish family, there's a lot of anti-English sentiment in there.
Oh yeah.
Right. But at the same time, our TV is English. Our sport is quote unquote English. Major sport.
Right.
With all due respect to Talbot Town, like I have a cousin who is one of these.
Fact you've got about a dozen.
Yeah, but at least Irish family, y'all. He is one of these guys who who believes in the English soccer thing of support your local team, which is support your local team, and what he doesn't realize is he has to drive past 4 football teams to get to Swansea to watch Swansea City play.
Right. Right.
It's a nice sentiment, but it doesn't translate to reality.
Right.
And there are elements of Welsh culture that absolutely 100% need to be preserved at all costs.
Yes.
But that's, again, different story,
different day.
All right, this song's called Jubilee.
I like this one.
Actually, I like it too. Not because he reminds me of me. But you got to remember, right? Back in the 90s, back in this time, the idea of a grown man playing video games, or a grown woman playing video games, was absolutely stupid.
Slob, lazy,
can't play computer games, video games. Oh, and he probably smokes weed too.
Big pothead.
Yeah. So it's kind of, what's the best way to say this? Nobody saw the growth of video games as much as they grew. Nobody saw that they'd be grown men. I mean, one of my favorite YouTube video gamers is 82 years old.
Yes.
She is 82 years old. My other favorite YouTube gamer is 61 years old.
Yes.
They both play the same game. So, the idea that video games are now for kids, were just for kids, is now blown out the window, right?
Right.
It is a very, very heavy song in terms of, the musical content. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the lyrical content, but the musical content. And it does have, sound effects in the background. And if you're British, the sound effect. There was a button that you would press on the sound effects making machine, and it would make exactly those sound effects. Every
really?
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that.
That's you knew the order of how it goes. But this is the thing. This was unusual for a blues song because it was mean. Blues songs weren't mean. They were storytelling. They told this, they told that. They didn't necessarily make a statement, but this was it's judgmental and condemning.
Right.
Which goes against everything that all the other musicians were doing at the time, which was, you're awesome. Be yourself.
Right.
You're fantastic.
Right.
And this one was almost, well, if you do this, you're
a loser.
You're a loser. And that goes against Damon's ethos, too, when you think about it, because, even when he wrote his...
then maybe the whole thing's ironic.
Maybe. Don't you think? All right. we go to my favorite blues song of all time. There is no other way for me to describe it. This song is called "This Is Alone."
And this one was very psychedelic to me.
Yeah, definitely. It's every album in the 80s, every hair metal album had that one acoustic song, right?
Right.
Every British album in the 90s had that at least one epic song, right? This not only was not only an epic song, this was probably their most epic song, and this should have been released as the fourth single.
This was it, guys. If you've been paying attention, this is the song that we mentioned in the beginning.
Yes. I mean, it's in the vein of things like Love Rain on Me.
Right.
And Champagne Supernova.
Right.
And, it's just this big, bombastic blowout. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's got 3 guitar solos in the song, right? Graham's playing 3 at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, dubbed, obviously.
And, he tries to play all 3 of them live at the same time. And he kind of pulls it off because Graham Coxon is a phenomenal guitarist.
Yes, he is. But Shiva, he is not.
No. You can have that Bill Bailey 6-neck guitar.
Right.
The good thing about this is that, Damon Albarn uses his singing range, not in the ha kind of way, but more in the kind of way,
Right.
I mean, he, that chorus, not yelling, but very, very...
Spirited,
yeah. Iris by Goo Goo Dolls. That's an example of a type of song that it's like. Yeah. And lyrically... We've talked about Englishness all through the thing, right? Lyrically, this is probably the most English song on the album.
Yeah.
After everything, right? I mentioned earlier, if you guys were paying attention, Damon Albarn listened to BBC World Service when they were homesick.
When they were touring the world, promoting the album.
So, they had this song, they had the music, and they needed lyrics, and they had no idea where this lyrics was coming from. And... there's this thing on British radio, BBC World Service, called the shipping forecast.
Right.
And it basically tells you about the ocean traffic around the British Isles when you're trying to get into ports.
Right.
So for things like, containers, ferries, whatever you want, that's what they're talking about, right? Alex James would explain in an interview why... what this has to do with everything, right?
He said, "For Christmas, I bought him a handkerchief with a map of the shipping forecast regions on it. You can never tell where the muse was going to appear. We always found the shipping forecast soothing. We used to listen to it on the American tour to remind us of home. It's very good for a hangover. Good cure for insomnia, too."
Yeah. So it's like, only Blur could write a song about one of the most boring topics.
The shipping forecast.
Yeah. The boat traffic report. Let's not be fancy for a minute, right? You couldn't write a song about 99.9 FM's traffic report with Davy Davison, right?
Right.
Do that.
Right.
How he wrote it, I still don't know.
Years before SpongeBob, and they weren't even drinking that much or taking as many drugs as they eventually would. So
how they did it is beyond me, right? But they make references to rivers, British seaside towns, the Queen, Land's End, which is England's most southern point.
Right.
The Queen, she's jumped off Land's End.
Right.
And you just think about it and you think, what? Okay, this is such a boring sounding lyrics, but it worked.
Right.
And not only did it work, the chorus and the instrumentation pushed it over the top.
Right.
This song, right, not only is it a favorite amongst Blur fans, it is a favorite amongst the band. They played it at pretty much every gig that they had, except for their Best Of tour, which is when they did all their singles from their debut to when their Best Of album came out, which I think was in 1999.
Right.
And it was the only album track to be put on the Best Of.
Yeah.
Which a lot of bands, when they do their Best Of, they just put they put what they like, what they think is the best.
Right.
Blur did the whole singles, so it was the greatest hits album.
Right.
And this was the only album song. I mean, this is possibly top 3 Blur's best song, and in my opinion, it's top 1. This song right here makes the album from a 4 out of 10 album to a 7 out of 10 album.
So this song is basically one of the main reasons why you wanted to do this review today.
Partly.
That and Parklife.
No. But saying 4 to 7 is probably a big stretch, but it definitely adds an extra point or a star to a rating. This is one of those songs that does that, you know? And this would have been the natural end to an album.
Would have been.
Because they just had to go mess it up. And they did mess it up.
Yes.
Lot 105 is an, quote, instrumental. Mm-hmm. Right? It's Hammond organ, quirky bass line, good drums.
Yes.
It is designed to be cheesy.
Yes.
And it does it.
It does it masterfully.
It does its job. It's just in the wrong place on the album.
Yes.
Right? You've got, 16 bars of la la la's, right? Mm-hmm. And then the final thing on the album here is 18 times a week love, la 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 la. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the Hammond organ going, you know, after the emotion that This Is a Low brought you through.
Right.
A friend of mine is a big R.E.M. fan. And he said that I'll Take the Rain would have been the perfect ending to the album reveal if they hadn't put Beach Ball out there. Right. And this is the same thing. It does take the shine off it when you listen to the album concurrently.
Right.
They could have buried this song after Parklife.
Right. And it would have been fine.
It would have been fine. In fact, it probably would have done a lot better after Parklife.
Right.
You know? But like I said, it's to me, this is a 7 out of 10 album. I can't give it any more than 7.
I concur.
And the reason why. Number 1, 16 tracks.
Yes.
Little too long.
Muy poquito.
1.5 instrumentals.
Yes.
Boring instrumental and an instrumental that is so out of place.
Yeah, an incorrectly placed instrumental.
Yeah. The track order, I mean, like I said, the track order's fine. Lot 105 should have been slapped somewhere, buried in the album. Yes, 3 of the most iconic songs this band ever did. Parklife, This Is a Low, Girls and Boys on this album. But it fed the narrative and kind of confirms the narrative that Blue were a great singles band.
Yeah, because what's not singles-wise is not...
It's just there.
I mean, there's a couple, but not enough.
When you have half an album that is just there...
It's filler.
Yeah. If you have a 16-track album, you need to make sure that at least 14 of those tracks are fantastic. And they only managed with 6, maybe 7.
Yeah.
Not to say that the other 8 weren't good.
Right.
But they weren't good enough.
Well, let's talk about the legacy of it.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, this was, like I said, this was seen as the foundation of Britpop. This was the spark. Because this came out before... Definitely Maybe by Oasis. Came out after the Pulp and Suede albums kind of laid the foundation.
Right.
This was the bang. This is the house on it.
Yeah. I mean, it was considered the second of a 3-part album series. Yep. Modern Life is Rubbish and Parklife were followed by The Great Escape. Yeah, The Great
Escape. I hate that album. I think it's a dreadful album. And the problem was, right, it was... When the album came out, when The Great Escape came out, it was considered probably like the second coming of the White Album.
Right.
And then after people got a second listen to it and a third listen to it...
We'll have to do that one out.
We'll have to do that one out. They're basically saying this.
Another season.
Basically put it like this. When we reviewed Morning Glory,
right,
the reviewers listened to it, thought it was okay, and then listened to it again after a couple of months and thought, wow, this is fantastic.
The opposite was true with The Great Escape.
Because this is the thing. Oasis is singles that they release off their album. Some might say, Roll With It, Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger.
Right.
And then you've got Morning Glory, Champagne Supernova, Cast No Shadow in there. Right. With The Great Escape, they released Country House, Stereotypes, Charmless Man,
great,
Universal, good. But if I was to say, pick the two songs that are better, Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, Charmless Man, Universal, 8 out of 10 people are going to pick the Oasis ones. Yeah. You know? And that kind of led to the band almost breaking up.
Right.
I mean, I mentioned earlier that Damon Alburn was humiliated at the Brit Awards.
Right.
You know, the band were basically held together. They did a Top of the Pops performance where they had a roadie and a cardboard cutout as 2 members of the band. So what they did is in 1996, they all got together. They had a big argument and destroyed each other's CD collections and record collections. That was the joke that they said.
Yes.
And again, the sub middle classness of it.
Yes.
Graham Coxon didn't get drunk and yelling at Damon's face.
He broke his records.
He wrote a letter and, quote, burned his record collection.
Yes.
And they made Blur, which was a lo-fi, rocky, woohoo, grungy album, ironically.
Yes.
You know? And, you know, again, this album won 4 Brit Awards. You know? And that's a big deal. The Brit Awards are the UK equivalent of the Grammys. You know? Right. And they don't have as many categories as the Grammys. Right. You know, so winning 4 of them is the equivalent of winning like 7 or 8 Grammys. Right. You know? And it led to both bands fighting for the Battle of Britpop. Blur won the battle, lost the war, and in terms of album sales, they became second fiddle. Worldwide gig sales, second fiddle. Ironically, when they lost their popularity with the music press and the mainstream fans, that's when Blur became Blur. Better professionally, yeah. You know, artistically. So, you know, and all it took was Paul Weller slapping the heads together. There's a clip online right now, which I'm going to link in the description at some point. Please do. Oasis and Blur with Paul Weller, who was considered the godfather and, you know, the mod father, the hen mother of that era, telling them what to do. So, that is it. Guys, what is your favorite song on Parklife? Let us know. Tell us on our social media. I'll put the question up there. You know, by the time you hear this, the question will be up there. You can tell us, what is your favorite song on this album? What's your favorite Blur song altogether? Do you like Blur? Do you not like Blur? Have we convinced you to go listen to this album? I think you should. I think you really, really should. If you were a fan of British music, I think you should listen to this album. Definitely. Sarah? Yes. Thank you so much for being here. You are most welcome, dear. I appreciate it. I know you were very, very busy working on some super secret squirrel projects. Yes. But before we go, I just wanted to make a brief announcement. Unfortunately, due to circumstance, we are having to postpone the debut episode of the Salsa Section until the first quarter of 2021. We've got a lot more research what we've got to do, and it's going to be at least the first quarter of 2021. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. We just... COVID has kicked our boo honeys. Yeah, COVID, my 8 to 5 because of COVID. My super secret squirrel mess. Yeah, kids, everything like that. So we're going to have to delay it, unfortunately. But don't worry. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. And Sarah, thank you so much. If you want to get with Sarah, maybe bad choice of words. If you have any questions for Sarah, just hit her up on social media. Her handles are in the description. Yes. Sarah, thank you very much. You are most welcome. Thank you for keeping me company. No problem. Thanks for having me. And just remember that life... Blah, 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 blah. Parklife. There you go. All right, I'll be back here in just a second. Thanks everybody for listening. Again, thank you to Sarah for taking the time out of her very, very busy day, and trust me, it is very, very busy, to talk about this. And yeah, it was good to have her on, and we will be seeing Sarah again soon. We're talking of Blur's arch rivals. Me and her will be sitting down and talking about the top 50 Oasis songs that were released in the 90s. You don't want to miss that because there is some controversy, especially if you were an Oasis fan. That being said, on October 6th, so 1 month from now, yeah, we're going to be dropping our first episode of the Oddworld series, Abe's Odyssey. Basically, what I'm trying to do is one of my favorite games of all time. That's going to be on the 90s Gamer on a YouTube channel, and I'm going to be going ahead and trying to save all 399 Mudokons across the 2 games that came out around about the same time. So that's going to be something fun here in the next couple of weeks. Also, this year we are going to go ahead and do our charity live stream. We are going to be raising money for the Movember Foundation, which is a very, very important charity to me. We might have some others that we might split the donation to. I'm not sure yet, but that's a very, very important charity to me because of some of the issues that I've had over the most recent years. And this year we're going to be doing FIFA, the Road to World Cup 98, one of the greatest soccer games of all time. Basically put, I am taking the Great Wales to the World Cup. Can I take Wales from the lowliest qualifier to the World Cup final? Just wait and see. So you're going to want to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can go ahead and see that, and again, chip in when you can, okay? And that's pretty much it for this week. Again, it's good to be back. Last season was a very, very good season. We had to end it, unfortunately, due to the issues that we've had with COVID. And luckily, we found a way to work around them. So we're going to go ahead and work around them this season. We've got a full list of things that we're going to do. And starting with next week, I'm going to be joined by Greg Gregory. He's going to come and talk about 3 classic fighting games. We're talking about Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Tekken 2, and Killer Instinct. We're not going to be talking about Mortal Kombat, partly because I wasn't a Mortal Kombat guy. I'm sorry, everybody. But partly because I think there's more depth to these 3 games than the Mortal Kombat, okay? That's pretty much it. So, guys, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, or Instagram, check out Because Maybe Network. Look us up on YouTube at bit.ly/bmnetwork-YouTube. And, of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and Tune In. So, hope everybody has a fantastic week. We will see you next time. Take care of yourself, and remember, all the people, Parklife. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm going to get off you. Take it easy. Bye.
How come your squiggles are bigger than my squiggles?
Because I'm making out with the microphone and you're not.
Okay.
And my voice is louder too.
That's where the kids get it from?
Yeah.
Okay.
I project a little better.
I project just fine, thank you.
There you go. Your squiggles are now as big
Shut
as
up.
mine. Okay.